Okay, now we're going to be looking at oxyacetylene welding. This is our manifold system, and you can see the gauges up here. Everything is going to be set if what you've got on the end of these is there's like a water valve behind the regulator. And all you have to do is turn on that water valve for both the acetylene and the oxygen. The oxygen is the green line. Gas is the red line. And the regulators themselves are going to be correct. You're going to be working over here. You have a choice of this one or the one on the end. I'm using the one on the end, and you'll see why in a minute. So you'll come in, and of course, sanitation. Before you start and after you leave, spray down the blowpipe. That's what it's called. If you want to be rotating these through, but if you want to, you can sanitize the inside of the welding mask. Unlike the arc welding, this does not generate UV light. That's why you notice I'm wearing short sleeves. You might want to wear long sleeves. There are times you can get a pop from the metal. I'm actually going to try to demonstrate that. But I know enough about this that I'm not worried about metal jumping out and hitting me in the arm. But if you're very new to this and a little afraid of that, it's just a little burn. It won't kill you. As I say, you want to let this stuff sit here for a few seconds anyway. Then wipe it down. I don't think this is flammable, so it's not going to be a problem. And there's trash cans over there, but it's not within the reach of my microphone wire. All right, the other things you're going to find out here are a sparker. See the spark? Pair of pliers. 2 pieces of metal for the first exercise, so you'll be able to come in and go straight to doing this. That's so that when it's your turn to do it'll mean people go to the iron worker kind of on a staggered basis. This is another type of sparking device, but it's kind of broken and it's out. I've got to replace the flints on it. So you've cleaned your stuff. You're going to have your gloves on anyway. Now, this is the piece that we're going to do. You're going to have some drawings, and what you're going to do at gas welding is do a butt weld, do what's called a lap weld, and a T-weld. The T is obvious. It'll look a little like this before somebody put it together. Or in other words, here. The 2 pieces, you're going to start with a butt weld, and that's just taking these 2 pieces and putting them together. The lap weld, they overlap a little bit, like that, and then you got to weld along here. The secret to this weld is slow and pour on the heat. You've got to go slow and get a lot of heat on it, and you want to do both sides, so it's going to take you a few minutes. This is not, gas welding is considered a very, very slow process, and it is. But it has some advantages, which we'll get into when I talk about welding in the chalk talk area. The T-weld is obviously setting them up on top of each other like that. So there's the T, the lap, and then the butt. And I'm going to do part of the butt weld for you to show you how the whole thing works. This One other thing about these is this is not adequate for arc welding. It is not. It is still, you can see through it pretty well. It is mainly there's a point of light as you adjust the oxygen settling. It gets very bright, but it's very bright. You got a lot of flame here, and so you've got brilliant. You need to have this to protect you against the light that's there, but it's not ultraviolet. So don't use these for arc welding, only for gas welding. There's a way to tell which is which by looking at the fluorescent lights. And if you can see the fluorescent lights through it, it's okay for this kind of welding, but not arc welding. With the auto darkening lens, you kind of lose all that together. But put the lens on. And then you can see what you want to do is open the gas line about barely, about 1/8 of a turn. Notice that it went from up there, not even 1/8 of a turn, 1/16 of a turn. Because as soon as you get any amount of gas coming out, you're going to be okay. Somebody has adjusted this. Well, anyway, too much. There we go. As you see this flame, you may not be able to see it, but yeah, you can see it. The soot coming off of there. You want to adjust the acetylene, and only the acetylene, no oxygen yet, until that end starts to feather a little bit. You can see the end feathering. The soot has gone away. You want to adjust to where the soot has just barely gone away. And when it's at that level, at that state, then very, very slowly, whoever was using this last really messed up. Turn on the oxygen, and you see how it turns blue. And if you look in here, you can see a inner flame. And you keep adding oxygen until the inner flame connects to a flame at the bottom. So you have a little bitty flame at the bottom, and then the rest of it going up. And then you're ready to weld. Hold it like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to tack it. We're going to go down to this bottom side here. We're going to get it hot. You'll see the metal getting red hot. And we're going to melt the end of it together down at this end. The reason for doing this is as you start welding along, the two pieces will tend to separate, and you don't want that to happen. So we've tacked it at that end, and now we're going to start the actual welding process. And that is to get it hot. That very tip of that inner flame think of it as a pencil. You're going to run it around, you're going to have that just touching the metal, and you're going to color it in until the metal gets hot. And hear that pop? I'm trying to pop it. Sometimes you'll get a pop like that, and it'll scare you, but don't worry about it. And if the flame goes out, just turn it off and start all over. What I'm trying to do right now is create a molten area. Maybe you can see it, I'm not sure. Can't get it in much closer without some issues. You want to create a area about the size of a dime. A big round puddle covering both sides of the metal. and they're going to be melting together. Every so often you might need to add a little bit of metal. Think of this welding rod not as something you're going to add to it, but think of it as an eyedropper. You're going to drop in a touch of metal, and you just get it in close, get it hot, and then you can touch it into the pool, and it will give a little bit of extra metal into that in there. You don't want to be trying to lay the piece all the way down through the side here. That's not how it's not what happens with it. Then you're just going to walk this little mud puddle, little steel puddle, just kind of walk it up the joint. Maybe every now and then add a little bit of metal from the welding rod, get it in close, and a little bit will dribble off. That's the way I like to do it. Some people get it hot and then they touch it into the pool and it melts a little bit away. That's also an acceptable way to do it. Okay, now we have our flame. We're going to turn it off. Oxygen off first, then acetylene off. There's a little pop from the acetylene that happens. Don't put it up here while the flame's on, please. Well, actually, I guess now, since the other guy is only two people, if there are people across the way, it's kind of a problem. Okay, now, it's still red hot, but that's okay. You can see how it welded through here. Maybe a little hole here and there, but that's all right. It's always awkward doing these demos because I'm having to do it to make sure I don't have my arms in the way. I hope I didn't this time. But you can see how it's melted the two together, and you can see how this end, all we did was just melt these two together to tack it a little bit and finish that up along the way, and you will have your piece. Set this aside. Then you will go and cut your other pieces, and you'll cut 4 more pieces because 2 of them will be used for a T-joint and 2 for a lap joint. And when you're done with these, there is one more exercise to do with the welding. If you still have time with your 2-hour time frame left, you can get started on it. And that's the angle assembly. That'll be explained in another little video. So, final thing, sweep the area. Take the things that you used. I mentioned about putting them in the little box over here so that we can decontaminate them. Pliers, sparker, welding rod. Welding rod can go in the timeout box or the quarantine box. We'll take that. We got tons of those. We'll swap those out all the time. Then also, I think I'm going to go ahead and have the valves on and ready to go so that you don't even have to touch these other valves up here. It's a lot of theater spraying all this stuff down. But if you're short, you're going to have to get the step stool out and reach up there. So I'm just going to go ahead and have the gas ready to go. All you got to do is adjust these as you'll need. We've got an exhaust fan. Of course, I'm not running it during the demonstration, but I'll have it on when you're out here. Let the stuff cool. If you absolutely know, if you're 2 hours up and you just finished your last piece, you can take the hot one over to the sink. I've got a bucket in there that you can dip it in the water and cool it off. You'll take these back to your locker. Write your initials on the back with your Sharpie. Put them in your locker, and at the end of the semester, they're all going to go in the box, and you'll turn them in, and I'll go through all the stuff that you've made. Oxy Acetylene Welding.